Let me tell you the real story behind the famous McDonald's hot coffee case. Because trust me, it's probably not what you've heard. For years, people joked that some lady spilled coffee on herself and walked away with millions. Late night comedians made fun of her. TV shows like Seinfeld even used it as a punchline.
You get me one coffee drinker on that jury, you gonna walk out of there a rich man.
I mean, who ever heard of this anyway? Suing a company because their coffee is too hot? Coffee is supposed to be hot.
Yeah, but Jackie says the top was faulty.
But here's what really happened. Her name was Stella. She was 79 years old, and she wasn't driving when she spilled the coffee like many people think. Her grandson was driving. They went through the McDonald's drive-thru, got coffee, then pulled over and parked so she could add cream and sugar. She set the cup between her knees, went to take the lid off, and that's when disaster struck. Now this wasn't just oops, that's hot kind of coffee. McDonald's was serving coffee at 180 to 190 degrees. To put that in perspective, say a restaurant serves coffee around 160 degrees. At 160 degrees, coffee can still cause serious burns, but it takes about 20 seconds for a third-degree burn to happen. Usually, that's enough time to wipe it off. But McDonald's coffee at 180 to 190 degrees, that stuff could give you third-degree burns in 3 seconds, even through clothes. And that's exactly what happened to Stella. The coffee spilled all over her lap, and she was wearing sweatpants, which made it worse because the fabric held the scalding coffee against her skin. She suffered third-degree burns on 16% of her body, including her inner thighs and private areas. In some spots, the burns went all the way down to the muscle. She spent 8 days in the hospital, had skin graft surgeries, and went through a painful recovery that lasted 2 years. And here's the thing, Stella wasn't trying to get rich. She asked McDonald's to pay her $20,000. just to cover her medical bills, but McDonald's offered her $800. That didn't even cover a fraction of her hospital costs. So the case went to trial, and when the jury heard the facts, they were stunned. They learned McDonald's had received over 700 reports of people being burned by their coffee, including children. But McDonald's refused to lower the temperature because, well, they sold millions of cups a day and figured burning a few people here and there wasn't a big deal. The jury didn't like that one bit. They awarded Stella $200,000 to cover her medical bills and suffering, but since they thought she was 20% responsible, they lowered that amount to $160,000. Then they hit McDonald's with punitive damages, a punishment for their behavior of $2.7 million. That sounds like a lot, but it was only about 2 days worth of McDonald's coffee sales at the time. Later, the judge reduced the punishment amount to $480,000. And in the end, Stella and McDonald's settled for a confidential amount that was reported to be less than $500,000. But here's the sad part. The media didn't tell people the real story. Instead, they ran with the headline, "Woman wins $2.7 million for spilling coffee on herself." It became the go-to example for so-called frivolous lawsuits, exactly what big corporations and politicians wanted. They used the case to convince people that lawsuits were out of control, so they could pass new laws that made it harder for regular people to sue big companies. But Stella's case wasn't about greed, it was about safety. She wasn't just worried about herself, she was worried about the next person, maybe a child, getting burned by dangerously hot coffee. At the end of the day, this case wasn't a joke. It wasn't a money grab. It was about holding a giant corporation accountable for putting people at risk and making sure something like this didn't happen again. And that's why this case still matters today. Injury lawsuits aren't about hitting the jackpot. They're about fairness, accountability, compensating injury victims for the wrongs of others, and making sure big companies play by the same rules as everybody else. Stella did not want to be famous. She did not want millions. She just wanted McDonald's to take responsibility for serving dangerously hot coffee that hurt her and many others. So the next time you hear someone say, "People will sue for anything these days," remember Stella's story, because behind every so-called frivolous lawsuit is usually a real person with real injuries who just wants justice, and you won't know all the facts of any case until you dive deeper. Now, if you are someone that has been wronged by someone else's actions like Stella, you may be asking yourself if your case is worth $1 million. And if that sounds like you, then you should definitely watch this video about to pop up right here, where I share with you the biggest factors that determine whether or not your case is worth $1 million or more. And for more helpful videos like this one, you can subscribe to my channel right here. Lastly, if you've been injured in Kentucky, remember to